Welcome again, software engineers. I'm glad to be with you for day 24 of CSC 222 software engineering. If you'd like, in Zoom, you should see a little poll there about, are you looking forward to Thanksgiving break? What do you plan on do? Just in a few words. If you're traveling, how far? And then question 4 is nothing. I don't know how that one snuck in there. Feel free to work on that poll, and if you're interested, I'll share the results with everybody after a while. I'll be honest with you, the job will require hard work and long hours. I wish someone had warned me about that before I drove all the way over here in this stupid suit. I was looking for a different reaction. Do most people punch you before leaving? Let me review the assignments with you, just so you know. They are on Blackboard, and sometimes it even shows the correct thing there. Assignments 19 and 20 are due today. Thank you for those teams that have already submitted that. I know I've heard from at least one that you're actively working on that, and that's fine. That's fine. I'd like to see that either later today or first thing tomorrow so I could take a look at those. The two assignments are related. The first is the idea document, the requirements and specifications. That's what's going to guide you through the sprints. And the second one, think of as sprint 1. The product should do something. It should have a level of functionality, and that's the idea behind sprints. It's not a prototype. It's not just some haphazard code, but it's a product that does something, although not the final product, not all the functionality. You're not implementing all of the features there. CNCS 10 is also due today. If that one snuck up on you, that's okay. You can do that later today or first thing tomorrow, and that will be a-okay. Assignment 21, and I'm going to say some things about that this evening, is a third of the 3 or maybe 4. I got to think we'll do one more. Probably third of the 3 articles that we'll take a look at by Fred Brooks. And I want to step through this one because this is the one that I think has the most general suggestions and observations for software engineers. Seems like a long time for now, but next week is Thanksgiving break. I don't necessarily want you to do a lot over Thanksgiving break, but the odds of having to do some are probably high unless your team got ahead with the sprints, because assignments 22 and 23, 22 is an implementation document which combines aspects of design and instantiation. And then 23 is the second sprint. So additional features, implement more functionality. If you, as a team, thought about this and thought about a third, that's okay. Even if the first sprint doesn't seem to be a third, if you focused on hard part first, that would have been worthwhile. And that's a-okay. So these are the 3 sprints. This is the 16th of November. So the first sprint is due. And then 2 weeks from today is the second one. And 2 weeks after that, during the final exam week, is the third sprint. The plan is the third sprint would be the final finished product. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. There will be a little bit of time at the end of today that you can get into Teams again, but before we do that, I'll just pause for even more than 7 seconds and entertain questions about this if you have them. I love to share these kinds of things with computer science students. Say a little bit more about the ACM as a professional society today. Every once in a while, these webinars work out to be at a time when we're actually having class and we could just sit here and watch. It doesn't work out for us because the 6th is a Tuesday And 12 p.m. Eastern time is nowhere near class time for sure. But if you just read the content here, it is very interesting. The past decade has seen unprecedented growth in software engineering. Developers spend enormous time and effort to create new products. With such enormous growth comes the responsibility of producing and maintaining quality and robust software. However, developing such software is not trivial. 50% of software developers' valuable time is wasted on finding and fixing bugs. Well, realize that when the author says wasted, what she means is it's a very necessary thing to do. But imagine if we had less bugs or even no bugs. Yeah. Up front, I told you that, the vast majority of time and effort that software engineers spend is in the maintenance phase. And the vast majority of that time, as we'll talk about when we come back after Thanksgiving, maintenance phase, is spent in fixing bugs, costing the global economy around $1.1 trillion. So how can artificial intelligence help in the different stages of software development lifecycle for developing quality products? In particular, she'll talk about programming language processing, PLP, an emerging research field that can model different aspects of code to automate diverse software engineering tasks. Way up front, second week, we talked about the idea of CASE, computer-assisted software engineering. Software engineers, we create tools for other people. It makes sense if we create tools to help us do our job. Well, I'll watch this. Sometimes I can even, I think it's limited to members of the Association for Computing Machinery, but sometimes I can rebroadcast those things. We'll see what happens. But just so you know, software engineering is a real thing. We're not just faking it here. One thing we are or strive to be is professional software engineers developing software in a professional manner. What are the characteristics or attributes of professionalism? We're up to number 9 that I introduced last time, being content. Wally, I'm no longer content to be useless at work. I decided to take up golf so I can be useless on weekends too. Are you going to take lessons? You get to hit the ball more if you don't. The Apostle Paul, writing to the church at Philippi, if you recall, one of the reasons he was writing was to take an offering for other Christians, especially those in Jerusalem that were hit hard. Not that I'm speaking of being in need himself personally, for I've learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. I imagine the Apostle Paul was content. I have a difficult time with that one. I'm relating it to the 9th commandment about you shall not covet your neighbor's house. Let me give you a little more insight into what the biblical text means by house here. Here's Luther's explanation. Fear and love God, so we do not scheme to get our neighbor's what? Inheritance or house, or get in a way which only appears right, but positive aspect, here's the guideline for professionals: help and be a service of him in keeping it. What do we mean by inheritance? I'll just let you double check Ephesians 1 for spiritual blessings. You're probably familiar with this narrative Jacob and his brother Esau. Esau sells his birthright. If you don't know, I just want to read it exactly for you. Do you want to see the text too? Sure, I can do that. Once while Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field. He was exhausted. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I'm exhausted." Therefore, his name was called Edom, red. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Now, for the context, the birthright, Esau was the firstborn son. In biblical times, the firstborn got a double share of the inheritance. You had two offspring, the inheritance is divided into thirds, and the firstborn got 2/3, and the second one only got 1/3. So that's the double portion of the inheritance. And for Israelites, that includes not only money, but especially land, and also their name, their good family name. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Esau said, "I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me now." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and he rose and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So in a biblical context, house here isn't what we think of today as a physical structure down the street. Much more than that. All right. So thank you for thinking about that and giving me your feedback in CNCS 10. We're going to think a little differently. Before we move on to the next and final phase of software engineering in 2 weeks, the maintenance phase, let's talk about ethical software engineering. Let me give you a definition. It's too short to mean anything, so I'll have to expound upon it. What do I mean by ethical software engineering? How we ought to develop software. The classic definition of ethics is how we ought to live. Sorry, I kind of like the word ought. It's a funny word. Don't say it very often. It certainly conveys should, but I think with a little deeper oomph to it. If ethics answers the question how we ought to live, and it does, ethical software engineering answers the question how we ought to develop software. Meaning, no surprise, focusing on those transcendental issues that we've seen many times before: truth, beauty, goodness, and community. So let me wrap these together in an ethical and Christian framework so you can see where I'm going with this. Before we see some specifics, it might be worthwhile to stop and ask this question: why do we care about ethical software engineering? And a related question is, does anybody really care? The answer is yes. I'm convinced of it. I'm also convinced that not every company and every individual cares, but a number do. But even more importantly, a Christian working as a software engineer should absolutely care. Why? This is a subject in itself, and I am going to share this with you, hopefully in little snippets in the last 2 weeks of class. Technology is not neutral. Maybe you believe, as I used to believe. If you would have asked me this years ago, hey, technology, I would have said that's a neutral tool. Technology in and of itself is not good or bad. Now, it can be used for good or bad, depending upon the attitude of the user's heart, how the user employs it, etc. But I have absolutely changed my mind after lots of investigation. Technology is not neutral, meaning no technology was ever created to be ethically or morally neutral. Tech is either created for a good purpose or a bad purpose. You should also recognize that good technology could be used for a bad purpose. Alternately, some tech created for a bad purpose could be used for good. We'll see it later. Let's say, I don't have time to convince you of this today, so let's say, okay, well, I still think technology is neutral. Yet, you know, people are not neutral. In your theology classes, you learned that great outcome of the Lutheran Reformation was rediscovering this duality in human beings, that we are simultaneously saint and sinner. Same person, yeah, you know what? I can do some ethically good things. I can do some morally bad things. We're not neutral, and neither is technology. Can I give you a couple of examples of what I mean? You probably recognize that technology amplifies. Technology amplifies human thoughts and human actions. In Unit 2, I shared with you that quote that's always attributed to Steve Jobs, who said, "Computer, wonderful tool, and really what it is a bicycle for the mind." And what he meant was, just as a bicycle can amplify muscle power, go faster, further with the levers, gears, and wheels than you can running, so too, a piece of technology as an informational tool can amplify our intellectual activities. All right. Example. This is going to strike you as weird. Imagine you wanted to gossip about somebody 50 years ago when I was a little boy. If you wanted to gossip about somebody 50 years ago, how did you do that? Well, you found one person and spread your salacious story, or you called up one, yeah, there were telephones 50 years ago, believe it or not. You called up one person, or you went to your neighbor across the back fence, and you told one other person. You wanted to gossip? We're not advocating gossiping. But if you wanted to do it, it was small, one-on-one, typically, right? What about today, 2022? If you want to gossip about somebody, how many people know your salacious story? Well, how many people does a tweet reach? Now, please don't tell me because of Elon Musk, fewer. Those phonies that said they were getting off Twitter because of Elon Musk, they're, yeah, right. Just like they moved to Canada if the election doesn't go their way. How many people does a tweet reach? Yeah, millions potentially. Technology amplifies. If it's a good intent, that's magnified. If it's an evil intent, that too is magnified. Technology amplifies. That's one of the reasons that we need to think about ethical software engineering. Another reason we need to think about this is because technology is a powerful tool. It seems trite even saying it. We all recognize that technology is a powerful tool. Here's no surprise. Americans say nation's big tech companies have too much power. Yeah. Okay. Don't you find it interesting that a social media platform that prides itself on free speech is able to remove and ban certain people and regulate certain speech? All sounds well and good, but the big question is, who is doing the regulation? Yeah. Of According to a new Consumer Reports survey, people have deep concerns about biased search results, unfair pricing, misinformation. You bet. Tech is, and what goes along with that is tech is very pervasive. Do you ever show up in the classroom and you left your phone back in your room? Panic sets in. We can't live without that. Did I turn? Oh, shoot, got my phone here. It's very pervasive. It's very powerful. That was the second reason. Third reason, this is a term that you don't already know, you need to know and understand. Technology is logically malleable. Technology is logically malleable. What's that mean? Well, malleable, just like the silly putty there, stretchable, bendable, shapeable. What logically malleable means is computer systems weren't created to solve just one problem. Computer systems were created to be general purpose tools. You can change the software and change this tool into something radically different. They can solve any informational problem. Logically malleable, meaning the user can change the job the tool does. Hey, 1 minute I'm using a web browser like right now in class. The next minute I'm using a word processor and then a spreadsheet and then Visual Studio. I change this at will to do different informational tasks. That's logically malleable. If you haven't heard the term before, now you have. Important term to remember. For those 3 to almost 4 reasons and many more, we need to think about ethical software engineering. This is not me personally, but I have my own stories. I just want to punch into this story and just point out a couple things for you. The code I'm still ashamed of. This is it's a rather old article. It says 10 years old? No, okay. 6 years old. Might as well be 10 years old, right? The code I'm still ashamed of. If you write code for a living, there's a chance that at some point in your career, someone will ask you to code something a little deceitful, if not outright unethical. I don't know the difference between a little deceitful and unethical. Let's just say those are the same things. This happened to me back 20 years ago. It's not me, it's this author. And it's something I'll never be able to forget. Wrote his first code, coding prodigy like some of you, woefully underpaid. 21, I got a full-time coding job in an interactive marketing firm in Toronto, Canada. Founded by a medical doctor, many of the clients were large pharmaceutical companies. In Canada, there are strict limits on how pharmaceutical companies can advertise prescription drugs directly to consumers, as there used to be in the United States, as almost everybody had before about 2019. As a result, these companies would create websites to present general information about whatever symptoms their drugs were meant to address. If a visitor could prove they had a prescription, they were given access to the patient portal. This is not what it was about, and I have no idea why this was chosen. We're going to just scroll past this. One of the projects I was assigned to involved a drug that was targeted at women, and specifically young women. Graphics and general style made it clear the client wanted to specifically target teenage girls. One of the features of the website was a quiz, sort of like my poll there. Do the poll if you haven't already, that asked girls a series of questions and recommend a type of drug based on their answers. Remember, the website was posing as a general information site. It was not meant to market anything specifically, nor an advertisement for any particular drug. When I received the user requirements that contained the question for the quiz, along with multiple choice answers for each question, missing from the requirements was any indication of what I should do with the answers. What rules determine what treatment the quiz would recommend? Now, by the way, we would call this specifications, but that's picking nits. I spoke with the account manager. She emailed the client and got me the requirements. With those, I proceeded to code up the quiz. Remember, you can't solve the problem unless you understand the problem. Before submitting to the website, my project manager decided to give it a quick test. Good idea to alpha test your product. She came over to my desk. The quiz doesn't work. Oh, what's broken? I asked. Well, it seems no matter what I do, the quiz recommends the client's drug as the best possible treatment. Yes, that's what the, specifications say to do. Everything leads to the client's drug. Oh, okay, cool. You see what's happening here? No matter what the website visitor says, the recommendation is always this drug and nothing else, unless you say you're allergic to it. I wish I could tell you that when I saw those requirements, they bothered me. They should bother you. I wish I could tell you it felt wrong to code something that was basically designed to trick young girls. But the truth is, I didn't think much of it at the time. I had a job to do and I did it. Nothing we were doing was illegal. And this author was the youngest developer on the team, didn't want to make waves, wanted to be a team player, understood the real purpose of the site to push a particular drug. So I chalked this up to marketing. Client was pleased, yada, yada, yada. So they invited the developers to a fancy steak dinner. The day of the dinner, a colleague emailed me a link to a news report. It was about a young girl who had taken the drug I'd built the website for. She had killed herself. It turned out that among the main side effects of that drug were severe depression and suicidal thoughts. The colleague who had emailed me didn't show up to the dinner. I still went. It was difficult and awkward. The next day, I called my sister. She was 19 at the time. We had discovered while working on the project, she had actually been prescribed the very drug I was building a site for. When we first thought about it, we thought it was cool. Now our conversation is very different. I advised her to get off that drug ASAP. Yeah. And he goes on. I think that many, many software engineers can relate a similar type of story. Being asked to do things that were, how did he phrase it? A little deceitful, if not downright unethical. Yeah. Ethics is going to come into play. Let me share my screen and whoa, whoops, not that screen. Don't judge me. How do I make it go away? I can't take the embarrassment. I quit. How was your Zoom call? Best one ever. Oh, that's the problem with Zoom, isn't it? In the world of computer science, there are two professional societies. A professional society, as the name implies, is a group of professionals banded together for a common purpose. And the common purpose of these two is to advance the state of the art of computing. One of the organizations is called the ACM, Association for Computing Machinery. The other is called the IEEE-CS, Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers Computer Society. You can see why we use acronyms now. They both banded together to produce a code of ethics. I'm going to jump into that code of ethics because I want to share some of the aspects of it with you. If you search for ACM Code of Ethics or IEEE Code of Ethics or software engineering code, you will likely find this. Notice the site ethics.acm.org. The Software Engineering Code of Ethics and Professional Practice. The professional societies believe that part of being a professional is acting in a moral and ethical manner. Software Engineering Code of Ethics, Professional Practice, version 5.2. This is just the preamble. There's a lot to it. Okay. Can I just share some aspects of the preamble with you? The short version of the code summarizes aspirations at a high level of abstraction. You recall abstraction means to simplify. The clauses that are included in the full version give examples and details, which you won't read here. Without the aspirations, okay. Software engineers shall commit themselves to making the analysis, specification, design, development, testing, and maintenance of software a beneficial and respected profession. This is just the aspects of the software development lifecycle, right? Analysis, that's what we call requirements, specification, design. Development is our instantiation. They break out testing, maintenance. We want that to be a beneficial and respected profession. In accordance with their commitment to the health, safety, and welfare of the public, software engineers shall adhere to the following 8 principles. Software engineers shall act consistently with the public interest. We don't create stuff for ourselves, we create stuff for other people. And oftentimes, even third parties that aren't using the system are impacted by the system. You make a license plate reader to put at the main gate of campus. Well, that's not just you and campus safety that are affected by it. It's everybody who drives through there, the public. From the public, it's client and employer. The product, exercising independent and what's an adverb for integrity? Independent judgment with integrity. Management, oh yeah, profession, colleagues, and self. So I just want you to recognize that practicing software engineers do think about ethical concerns. If you are a member of one of the 2 professional societies, the ACM or IEEE, I am a member of both. To be a member, you have to say, yep, I subscribe to these guidelines for ethical conduct. Good. I just wanted to, I should have brought out some other folks along the way who also think professionalism is important. Colin Powell might be a little before your collective memory. If you don't know who Colin Powell is, retired Army general, he served under 4 different presidential administrations, both Democratic and Republican. He also served as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He also served as Secretary of State. Yeah, pretty influential person. He had a short list of what it meant to be professional. Be punctual. Sounds like be on time. I prefer written information to oral. Writing encourages discipline. Very interesting. Make sure correspondence is excellent. Saying, hey, you didn't say anything about this. No, but we've done this, right? These 2 are really about all the documentation that we do as software engineers. We talked about the fact that you can't just rely on oral communication between you and the client. It has to be written down. Why? Because then it is specific. It's clear. It's unambiguous. As General Powell says, it's disciplined. Make sure that correspondence is excellent. Don't ever hesitate to ask if you don't know what to do. If you're doing, let's just hypothetically say, a team project in a class like CSC 222, and you don't know what it's supposed to be about, is it okay to ask the client? Yes, it is. I'm the client. So if you're not sure exactly what to do, it's okay to ask. As a matter of fact, we all want you to ask. As a matter of fact, General Powell demanded that you ask. Never ever permit illegal or stupid actions. I think I might add unethical actions to that. In the interest of, I can only do one of the two of these. And only very briefly. I had some firsthand knowledge. It wasn't me personally, but I do know the developers involved with this. And so I have to change the name to protect the innocent. Several software engineers who were working for a, I changed this just, they're working in the healthcare field. And there was a patient portal where people would put down, all their medical history. You're going to do this insurance, this doctor, whatever, I'm on this medication, I got these symptoms, etc. So it's a patient portal where patients are going to put in all their medical history, doctors are going to put in their medical history, etc. So it's all there and available. When a health provider sees you, the health provider can look and see what's up. Well, I had some folks who were asked, we want you to go through and we want you to cull that data, looking specifically at prescription drugs. And then we want to target market those people taking drug X, Y, and Z with these competing pharmaceuticals. Well, if you don't know, there's a lot wrong with that. First of all, the basic human element of privacy. And second, a really big issue of legality. HIPAA, the Health Information Protection and Something Act. Yeah, we can't do those kinds of things. You're wondering, what did they do? All right. Oh, I guess I did that really short. I don't use this search engine. Have I shared that with you before? You may use it. It's okay. I've just tried to expunge the alphabet company, Google, from my life. I know it's impossible. It can't be done. But I don't use Google Maps. I don't use the Google search engine, etc. Okay, fine. And if you've been there, they do these. This is the Les Paul guitar where you could, Les Paul, famous guitarist. I use this one because Les Paul lived in Waukesha, Wisconsin, 50 miles away. Okay. Famous guitarist. You got a Les Paul guitar, you got a lot of money there. Well, Google made this little doodle and you could play a little tune. And then you can make a little composition and then you can share it. A couple of people estimated how many billions of hours of time people spent doing that. Now, it's certainly okay if this is just a harmless sideshow. But many people were spending work hours making funny tunes there. All right. We want to talk more about professionalism, but speaking of professionalism, it's always important to stand up. That's the professional way. You have heard, I think, was Elon Musk big on this? I'm trying to remember who. It's not his original idea, but the idea of holding a standing meeting, no chairs. Why? That would hopefully make things shorter. I don't know whether it worked or not. Okay, are you ready? Synchronize your watches. We got 1 minute. Stand up. If you haven't done the poll, go ahead and do that. I'll stop it afterwards. We'll see what people said. Stand up, walk around, come back in 1 minute. You still there? 30 seconds. Very close. All righty. What? Everybody's absolutely looking forward to Thanksgiving break? I'll have to, I have to sign into Zoom to see those free-form results, okay? Whoa. Some of you are really, now what about this last question here? 71 to 20. Huh, that's interesting. Some of you are going quite far. Good for you. Congratulations. All right. That was fun. Back here. Every once in a while, I'd like to share with you what other people think about professionalism. These are some articles written by students at the University of Missouri, their career center here. At one time, they had a really good sort of overview, and now they've broken it down into many different little pieces. So anyway, we'll just take a look at this one here because I think it's apropos for today. Top 5 communication do's and top 5 don'ts to avoid at work. What is a good workspace etiquette? If you haven't worked in an office or professional environment before, you're probably unsure. Well, it varies. There are some general guidelines for how to communicate at work. Keep it concise. Good email etiquette. Be specific in subject lines. One of my pet peeves, get an email message and there's either no subject or it's just question or many of us prioritize based upon the subject line. So email body, concise, to the point, be specific in subject line, be careful with reply all. Yes, in general, if there are more than 3 people, reply all is not warranted. Ask questions. It is okay. Actively listen. When you're in a meeting or talking to a coworker, put away distractions so you can concentrate and listen. Don't think about the points you want to make when they're speaking. Consider what they're saying. Do be respectful. Should always speak to your coworkers in a respectful, polite manner. Do ask for and accept feedback. Oh, that's hard. That's hard. Yeah. Because a lot of feedback is constructive but critical in nature. Discuss sensitive topics privately? No, let's post them on Twitter. Don't be too casual. 5 exclamation points, 3 different smiley emojis. Okay. Don't interrupt. Don't discuss controversial topics. Well, I don't know. Everybody says this, but those are the interesting things. Don't bring personal business work. Don't bring personal. Do your best to put your personal phone out of view. Don't bring personal business work. It needs to say something different. Don't participate in gossip. All right. So just so you know, let's take a look at this from another perspective. What is professionalism? Daniel, whoa, I've never pronounced his name out loud. Porcupine? That's a great name. Sales and marketing, security. The conduct, aims, or qualities that characterize or mark a profession or a professional person. The following of a profession. Examples of professionalism. A high level professional is expected when working with clients. Yeah, okay. You know that it's essential to be professional if you want to be a success, but what does being professional actually mean? So we've seen the dictionary definition up front, repeats it here. What are the attributes of a professional? Now, this is one that is not on my list because this one is obvious. You're in a computer science program, you're in a computer science class. The vast majority of you are computer scientists and want to continue to be a computer scientist when you graduate. Specialized knowledge. Professionals are known for their specialized knowledge. You betcha. These professionals worked in a serious, thoughtful, and a sustained way to master the specialized knowledge needed to succeed in their fields. It's not easy. Not only do you have the knowledge, you can put that knowledge into practice. You are competent. Honesty and integrity, hallmarks of professionalism. Accountable. You not only hold yourself accountable to do the work and to admit when I made a mistake. Self-regulation. Are you scalable? Can you continue to work well when the pressure is on? Professionals look the part. How to exhibit professionalism. All right. Well, here you go. Just so you know, many folks discuss the importance of professionalism, including me. We're in the midst of talking about ethics. Why are we talking about professionalism? Because I believe, as does the Professional Society, that ethics and professionalism go hand in hand. They do. If you have not heard of the Golden Rule, but I bet you have, can I share it with you? Thank you. Jesus speaking. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good things to people that do good to you, what benefit is that to you? If you lend to the, but love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great. You'll be sons of the Most High. Be merciful, even as your Father in heaven is merciful. Golden rule, do to others as you would like to be done to yourself. Notice this is not reciprocity. It's not saying, I'm going to like you and then you'll like me. What Jesus said is, you, first of all, do good to other people, irrespective of whether they return that or not. This is a good article. We'll just take a tiny look at that. I'll have the reference here in case you'd like to see it later. What is the Golden Rule? Biblical meaning, importance, and examples. Is the ethical principle of treating other people as oneself would prefer to be treated. Can we get more ads? I think we could if we really tried. One of Jesus' most famous and impactful teachings, the Golden Rule, can be found in Matthew 7:12 and Luke 6:31. We just saw one of those. A simple notion about the ethical treatment of others that was profound in its origin and resonates through the ages. The term, of course, is not explicitly found in Scripture, but it comes out of, because historically people developed several different methods of living. The iron rule, might makes right. The silver rule, I'll do good to you if you do good to me. And then the golden rule. All righty. I'm sure that as a student at Concordia University, Irvine, you've heard of vocation. I think it's a big deal that is emphasized many places at Irvine. It's also a big deal emphasized many places at Concordia University, Mequon, and I would hope at every Christian university, especially a Concordia. The term is somewhat confusing. First of all, you recognize it's not vacation. It's not like next week, right? And today, many people use vocation to mean a technical trade. You'll hear people talk about vocational schools, like go here to learn to be an auto mechanic or a welder. That's not what this is. Vocation will allow Jesus himself to define it. You know the parable, the Good Samaritan. And you know how it ends. Jesus was asked a question. How do I attain eternal life? You know, Jesus retorted. What did they say? Do. Jesus said, you're right. Love God and love your neighbor. And then the lawyer said, but who is my neighbor? Aha. Jesus tells him a story. Jesus says, you go and do likewise. Lots of good articles on what it means to be what vocation means. Read this to better understand the doctrine of vocation. You can make reference to that. If you're looking for an author, the person you want to look for is Dr. Jean Edward Veith, V-E-I-T-H. Former professor and dean at Concordia here in Mequon, kind of like the church's expert on the concept of vocation. Let me give you the thumbnail sketch. What is vocation? Vocation is how we love and serve our neighbor. Vocation is how we love and serve our neighbor. Is software engineering a vocation? Absolutely. We can love and serve our neighbor by creating true, beautiful, and good software systems. You betcha. I didn't tell my chemistry joke. Why not? Well, I knew I wouldn't get a reaction. I wouldn't get a reaction. How come 3 people just left the class? What was Chuck Norris? Chuck can make onions cry. That's funny too. I'm asking you to read this article. I want to give you some insight because although it's a short article, you need a little bit of background, and I want you to focus on specific areas. So you'll see the article. It's on Blackboard, and this is assignment 21. Read the article, answer the quiz questions. All right. Let me step through this with you. It's entitled Computer Scientists as Toolsmith. Technically, Toolsmith 2. Brooks gave a previous talk called this, so this is the revised edition of Toolsmith. But this idea of making tools is foundational to software engineering, to ethics, and vocation. Brooks starts off, as a matter of fact, the very first heading says a discipline misnamed. And Brooks doesn't believe that we should call it computer science. He explains why when he has the heading, what is science and what is engineering? He says, Science is concerned with the discovery of facts and laws. A folk adage of the academic profession says anything which has to call itself a science isn't. If you have to call yourself science, then you're just posturing. Political science, social science, computer science. Oops, not yet. Perhaps the most pertinent distinction is that between scientific and engineering disciplines. So then in the next heading, what is our discipline? He says, the discipline we call computer science is in fact not a scientific, but a synthetic, that is an engineering discipline. We are concerned with making things, algorithms, software systems, and apps. So Brooks says, look, science is concerned with analysis, breaking down to understand. Engineering is concerned with synthesis, building up. He goes on to say, we make things that do not themselves directly satisfy human needs, but which others use in making things that enrich human living. In a word, the computer scientist is a toolsmith. No more, but no less. It's an honorable calling. And when Brooks uses the word calling, he means vocation. As we perceive our role aright, then we see more clearly the proper criteria for success. A tool maker succeeds as and only as the users of his tool succeed with his aid. That's what we've said since day 2 of this class. What makes a successful project? The production of an acceptable product. Acceptable to whom? The user determines whether it is good or bad, useful or not. And then Brooks' analogy here. However shining the blade, however jeweled the hilt, however perfect the heft, a sword is tested only by cutting. That swordsmith is successful whose clients die of old age. Oops. Name can deceive us. Okay, I got things out of order, so I'm going to go here. His next heading, how can a name mislead us? What Brooks says is, if you have to call yourself a science, you're doing so to elevate your own stature. I am a scientist. You are not. So he says, why are you calling yourself a science? Is it to make yourself more important? No. Okay. So a name can deceive and mislead us. One of the reasons he says is because we forget who our users are and their real problems. We start thinking like scientists that all we got to do is discover stuff rather than by engineers and making good tools. This deadly trend already curses American mathematicians. Its cold chill can be felt in computer science. What he's saying there is many mathematicians just sit in their offices and dream up beautiful lemmas. Doesn't help anybody. We are succumbing to the occupational illness of teachers diagnosed 2,000 years ago by Jesus Christ. You desire praise from one another. Subcreation. Here we go. Interesting thing in the middle called the gift of subcreation. Brooks says making things has its own joys. He talks about God creating in Genesis 1 and 2. And then he says that human beings, we are sub-creators. Why can we create? How can we create? Because God created us and gave us these gifts of sub-creation. He also quotes Tolkien in that. You know Tolkien. Tolkien called, like Brooks, this creativity the gift of subcreation. In this article, Brooks, in almost every article he writes, cites Dorothy Sayers. This is where I ripped off the idea of idea, implementation, and interaction. Brooks and Sayers call it idea, energy, and power. I follow this from the English writer Dorothy Sayers in applying it to all human making. We've said all creativity. He spends some time talking about artificial intelligence in there, which is a very interesting read, showing us that AI got off track. At the beginning of the 21st century, AI got totally off track. He says, Brooks speaking, the rhetoric of the field echoed the builders of the Tower of Babel. We will make machines that think. We will make giant brains. Yeah. Brooks says the strong AI goal is totally misguided. Trying to make intelligent machines is misguided. What Brooks believes we should be working on IA, intelligence amplifying. Yeah, that's really what all software systems are. Next heading, the toolsmith as collaborator. If the computer scientist is a toolsmith, and if in our delight is to fashion power tools and amplifiers for minds, we must partner with those who will use our tools, those whose intelligence we need to amplify. In other words, the only way to do software engineering is to collaborate. If you're not talking with your users, understanding the problem, understanding the requirements, figuring out the specifications, you're not doing it correctly. There's a cost to that, though. There is a cost. I love Brooks' definition of a successful product. It's under the heading called Terms of Collaboration. Brooks says two of our criteria for success in a tool are, number one, it must be so easy to use that a full professor can use it. Dummies like me. It needs to be so easy to use that even a dummy like me can use it. And number two, it has to be so powerful and productive that we want to use it. Whoa, that's good criteria. I'll commend you to carefully read through this article. Near the end, Brooks talks about recreating not tools, but ourselves. And at the very end, he talks about truth, beauty, and goodness. Fred Brooks is so well respected. He's the one of only, three computer scientists I know of who can liberally quote the Bible and Jesus in a published paper and not have it stricken immediately. I know, I've tried it. Those get X'd out immediately. Fred Brooks, too well respected. They didn't do it. And I appreciate it. Be sure to carefully read what he has at the end there. There he is. I wanted to show you a little video. Oh, good. I do not know Fred Brooks personally. I wish I did. Dr. Brooks is getting up there. He's got to be pushing 90. This is a relatively recent interview, and I like it for a number of different reasons. He talks a lot about what's good computer science, and he's not bashful at all, indicating how his Christian worldview really affects what he does. The other two computer science, Don Knuth is one who I've met. If you asked him, he wouldn't recognize me from A Man in the Moon. Okay. Don Knuth, Fred Brooks, and a few others. Who's the most important computer scientist I know? I don't know. Be one of you guys in the future. It's a tricky theological point. You say you covet your neighbor's humility? All right. Now, I'm going to try to open up the breakout rooms again. However, before we do so, and before you go there, I might have to just manually recreate everything again. We'll see. Can I pause and see, do you have any questions, either about upcoming assignments or current assignments or software engineering or whatever? I'm going to pause for a minute. If you've got a specific question, you can throw it in chat. If you want to unmute, you can do that. If you don't have a question, could somebody see if they can jump into a room? Because if not, then I'm going to have to, again, go and manually do all that. There's no option. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. So can you or can't you? Okay. I see somebody has jumped into a room, so it must be possible. So if you don't have a question, would you please jump into your breakout room? Hopefully, it's always disappointing when I look and there's only one person there. I'm not sure everybody else is. If you're the only one, you don't have to stay. But again, just talk among yourselves, get some things set, ask questions, answer questions, whatever is helpful. And when you're done, we're done. You can leave. I'm going to hang out here, though. I got to look at chat and see if there's a specific question. If there is, ask away. So I'm going to stop the recording. So let me say before I go, have a wonderful Thanksgiving break. I'll see you a week from Monday, November 28th.